Today we'll talk about time management. Time management is something I would think that we will all want to be better at since we really have finite time. The busier you get, the more important time management becomes and the harder you'll have to work at it. So especially for us entrepreneurs, time management is very important, but it's really something we should all work at getting better at.
And always remember, being busy is not the same thing as being effective. Often than not, it is the reverse, unfortunately. Never worked on being effective, but you think you're effective? Well, maybe you are, but probably you're not. And I think you'll have a better result if you assume that you're ineffective. At least that way you come into it with an open mind and you might learn something new. So I've just noticed over the years that a lot of times people have sort of like an emotional attachment to this. We all feel like we are effective, which we typically are not. And a good story that explains that is from Peter Drucker. So he wrote The Effective Executive. It's an old book on being effective. It was a fantastic book. So he helped executives become more effective. He actually spent 50 years of his life on this. And he said in his book that he never found a single natural, that's what he called it, someone who was naturally effective. He never found a single one in 50 years. So if either one of us are walking around feeling that we're effective, I think it would probably be more beneficial if we get our ego in check and just accept, well, probably not. We of course could be that 1 in a million or whatever it is that is effective, but it's pretty unlikely that we are. So that really, I think that's a good story. It really sort of helps us to get our ego in check that it's highly unlikely that we're naturally effective. The first thing we can work on to become more effective is to be more focused. Focus is a fantastic way of becoming more effective. And I know a lot of us pride on the fact that we're not focused, that we're great multitaskers. There's just been, at this point in time, like you can quickly do a Google search and lots of data will come up. But it's pretty much unequivocally proven at this point in time that multitasking is ineffective. You are not effective when you multitask. You can do very simplistic actions, but at the moment when any kind of complexity is added to it, you become ineffective. So the one thing you can definitely do to become more effective right out of the gate is just to be more focused. So now we know we need to focus. Well, what do we focus on? Well, a good thing to follow is the 80-20 rule, also called Pareto's principle. I'm sure everyone knows it already, but a few that don't. It just means that for 20% of the actions, you'll get 80% of the results. Now, sometimes, or a lot of times, people get really focused on this 80-20. It doesn't actually mean that it's 80-20. It could be 30-70. It could even be 5-95. It just really means for a small percentage of actions, you get a large percentage of results. And you really, for your unique situation, you're going to have to go in and dig in and really figure out what that is for you. But a common example could be sales calls. It's an obvious example that you get your sales calls done, you make more sales. So you really want to focus on getting those done. I would recommend just doing them in the morning so you know it's done and nothing else gets in the way. But you'll have to figure that out with your personal schedule. But that would be one example. The next item is willpower. Before we cover that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. A lot of people don't actually know this, but willpower is finite. It's not an infinite source. And you will notice this as you become more and more effective because you just start executing at such a high level that you will actually burn out of willpower. This is something I've noticed a few years back, and it definitely enabled me to change up my schedule, so I now know if I got to execute something, and let's say something I actually don't really want to do, that requires willpower for me to push my way through it, I will put that early in the day so I can actually use my willpower to get it done. And then later in the day, I will have blown through the willpower and I don't really necessarily want to do certain tasks, so I'll just schedule tasks that doesn't require any kind of willpower because they've been habitualized at this point in time. The next trick would be strategic blocks or chunks. Strategic blocks are larger blocks than chunks. Strategic blocks are typically, at least in my case, I will typically do 3 hours, and you will be absolutely amazed how much you can execute if you just focus for a given task for 3 hours. You can absolutely get a lot done. The key here though is no interruptions. So you either put your phone in another room or just put it in the do not disturb mode. That's what I do. I even turn around my phone so now if something comes up on the screen, I do not get distracted with that. I close my email program, I close my browsers, whatever else I don't need, and I just focus on that specific task for 3 hours. Now, if you can't do a strategic block, it is pretty intense if you can't do that yet. A good start would be chunks or chunking. That's really just where you take one specific task and you want to make sure you put it in a chunk and you just execute that. Like a good example would be paying your bills, for example. You don't want to, oh, I'm just going to pay my electric bill and then the next day I pay my credit card bill because now that came in, then I pay this bill. That's wildly ineffective. A more effective way would be you just take all bill payments and you chunk it in. You figure out the day that you can actually pay them all, and then you just knock it out in half an hour. That's going to be a lot more effective than doing a little bit here and there. So no matter what you choose, if you choose chunking or strategic blocks, you really just want to make sure that there is no distraction. So no phone, no nothing. If you start with you watching this and you just, oh, I'm just going to answer this call or whatever, it's not going to work. You're going to have to accept that. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I got to always answer the phone, I got to be available. No, you don't. And if you always have to be available, then you're going to need to start looking at hiring someone to take over. But more often than not, no, you don't. It's just not that simple. You can always find a time that you can do it. And even if you can't do it in normal work hours, okay, get up at 5 a.m. and do your chunks then. If you really want to be effective, that's what it's going to cost. Another great way to become more effective is to time your tasks. So if you figure out a given task, how long it's going to take, then I recommend adding a 10 to 20% buffer just in case your math is off. And then you just start the timer. So this has two benefits. Benefit one is, well, you see the timer there, it really makes you work more effective. You start seeing, oh man, I got 15 minutes left, I better go. So it makes you more effective right out of the gate. And then the second benefit is the more time you allow a certain task to have, the more time you use. It just expands. So when you really tightly control the amount of available time that you can use, you also become more effective. Another great way to become more effective is to start using checklists. Checklists should be used for tasks that you do yourself and tasks that your staff does. It's just a great way to become more effective since you really start thinking in a processed way. So the way you do it is you start on a given task and then you just write down the steps required. Typically I will do the task the first time and then I'll write it down as I do it. Then the next time I do it, I perfect my checklist, and the next time, so you sort of iterate into it, and eventually you will get a very effective checklist. And I've had checklists that I created maybe 6 years ago or 5 years ago that I'm still using, so I can come back to a task that I might not have done in a year, and I will execute that with maximum efficiency because back then I created a good checklist. And if I didn't have that checklist and I came back to it now, I would be really ineffective. Like I would have forgotten items, I would do the wrong items. It's just not, I would not have done a very good job. This is such a huge efficiency trick that, to be honest, if you don't do all the other tricks and you just do this one and you internalize this and make this a habit for your life, you will be effective. It is such a huge efficiency trick that you really don't need to do anything else. Of course, it's better to do chunking and strategic blocks. It will make you even better. But if you just do this one thing, this will make you more effective. Now, just a warning, the problem with checklists is our human nature. We're always going to go, oh yeah, checklists are awesome, I get it, but I don't need them. It's the other people that need them, right? And I battled with this myself, and I have seen this 100 times with my staff. It just happens. Even if you build a checklist, if you accept the checklist help and you build one, at some point you or your staff will go, yeah, okay, well, I don't really need to follow the checklist anymore because, it's Friday, I'm really busy, or whatever lame excuse we give ourselves. We stop following it, and that's the one thing you really just constantly got to be vigilant, because you or your staff will start thinking that, I'm special, I don't need them. Well, we do. It's human nature, and the few times, to be honest, the many times that I broke this rule, when I came back to it, I always realized, being an idiot, I should have followed the checklist because I forgot items. And I've done this, I've seen my staff do this. So just be really aware of this and really be vigilant and try your very best not to deviate from this, because it does work. And one quick little thing is, if you're still unsure of checklist, I will just say, why do you think planes don't crash? That is due to checklists. Airlines are heavy users of checklists. They have checklists for everything, and that is why they have no crashes pretty much. Like flying is some of the safest mode of transportation there is. So I hope this was useful for you. If you have any comments, please write them below. And as usual, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell. And thank you so much for watching.